For today we are gathered for the execution of Gabimaru the Hollow.
Yo, any last words, dude? My shift is almost up.
Word.
And from here on out.
My bad, boss. Blade fall.
And from here.
Yo, what's...
And from here.
Yo, dude, I should have signed her for Domino's. Why did I take this job? Nah, dude, this will be the finishing blow.
What?
Bro.
I quit my job.
The year is almost over. They just attempted to take me away from my wife. Toph still hasn't dropped a video on YouTube. He needs to lock in. In honor of Hell's Paradise Season 2 dropping in January, I decided, yo, why not run it up in December? But you already know what I'm about to say, so focus up. But after one of the most underrated openings that completely went under the radar, if you haven't heard it, you need to listen to it. We see this guy and he's talking to this woman. She says someone of your caliber could easily break the sword. You've been training since what? Your first day out the womb, first day on this earth? But I guess that's just how they move in Iwagakure. And he's saying, yeah, and on top of that, that guy was so bad with a sword, I didn't even need ninjutsu. But for their next method of trying to take Gabimaru off the mat, they tie him up and they set him on fire. But when he looks down at them like Mob, they say, what? Fire won't even kill this man? But after he survives this, she asks him, so what's up with your background? He's like, oh yeah, as a baby, I actually watched both of my parents die. I didn't shed a single tear. I just kind of looked at it and I'm like, I mean, you know, this happens every other day. This is a normal experience, so why cry? And dreams? I mean, I had no dreams. If I ended up going to 4 years of college, shoot, 6 getting my master's, and I ended up begging on the corner street, I wouldn't have cared. But when they try to execute him again, they use bulls to try to split him. But you can see he resists the bulls and pulls them closer to him so he doesn't get split. And that's when she really asks him, she's like, I saw you resist the bulls, so tell me for real, what's going on here? Go deeper into your background. He tells her, I had a wife. She was the chief's daughter, but she was dumb. Like, you know, I wasn't trying to be with a ditzy girl like that. And one day I was about to snap, so I decided, hey, I'ma leave. But when he talked to the chief told him,
Oh, you can go, no issue. You'll be missed though, you're my strongest soldier.
he gets pinned to the ground. The other ninjas had a plan to betray Gabimaru, but as he was being arrested, he killed 20 men in the process. And that's when this random guy is talking to that girl we've been seeing, and she tells him, why would somebody want to kill 20 men if they didn't want to live? And he also tells her about the elixir. But Gabimaru says, during my next execution, I'll give up. I'll let them slide me out. They drop him in a cauldron. It explodes, and he walks out with the flames on his body. And even he's asking himself, why won't I go down? But that's when they decide, I know a way to get you executed. And they bring him to the girl that's been interviewing him. But we find out that she's not an inspector, and they say that she's a part of the Asaimon, and her real name is Sagari, however you say it, but that's like low-key hard to pronounce, so we're just gonna call her Sword Girl because I might have said that wrong. But she tells him, my true orders were to come here and cut you down and you down only. And when Gabimaru has a vision of himself dying and notices she's the only person here who can kill me, he breaks free from his shackles. But the big man with big lips says, kill him now. And when she's at his neck, Gabimaru dodges the attack. After he lands, he reaches for his neck and he's like, yo, she really cut me. She runs in for another attack, but he hits the tight little jump for LeBron to dodge it. But Sagari flips the blade on him and she's like, yeah, you see yourself right now, you're scared. You don't really want to die, and I know why you don't really want to die, because you actually love your wife, and we see him smiling. And that's the reason Gabimaru won't give up just yet. Gabimaru steals the sword and he runs up to Sagari and they end up clashing. But we see Gabimaru running in with an attack saying that he's hollow, but we see his wife saying, no, you're not hollow, buddy. Stop that talk. You're the only person who loves me even though my face looks like this. And she pump fakes him with a quick kiss to show that he still has emotion, and we see her reaction to all the people he kills. So he's telling her, I'ma stop killing people. I'ma become better for the sake of you. But that's when Sagari blocks his attack with a scroll saying, oh yeah, if you go to this island people call Paradise and you find the elixir of life, oh, you'll get a pardon. You can see your wife again tomorrow if you find it tomorrow. But I will warn you, a lot of people who have gone on these expeditions have actually died. They have not come back. And Gabimaru's like, cool, I'll take the shot. But the big-lipped lord of the land is saying, no, we're not gonna let him go. But that's when Gabimaru tells Sagari, oh, you wanted to see ninjutsu, by the way? Don't worry, I got you. And he uses aesthetic blaze and off-screens everybody in that room. And that's when they start their expedition to Paradise. But before they go to Paradise, we see a bit of Sagari's past. And her dad was such a smooth executioner. I'm talking the one from Skyrim who tried to catch you. Actually, low-key, he wasn't a smooth executioner because he didn't get the job done. But she wanted to learn her dad's technique how to behead the criminal and let them move on peacefully. I'm talking Tanjiro fourth form on the mountain. Was it fourth form? I don't even know. But since she has fear, her blade is heavier and she can't do it. But we see all the criminals and Sagari is reading off a list. She's like, yo, these are terrible people. I mean, honestly, we shouldn't even let them have a pardon. They tell them about the pardon and this one guy says, oh, after I get that pardon, guess what? I'm gonna do more killing. What a waste of a pardon. You just got out of jail, just got out of a life sentence. No, not even a life sentence, a death sentence. And you want to go back to it? You got that, bro. And Gabimaru's just sitting here like he's a kid in class happy. But they tell everybody, if you don't want to do it, you're free to go. But this guy says, oh, bet, I'll just go back to rotting in jail. And he gets decapitated in a heartbeat. And all the Yamada Asaimon point their blades to the prisoners. And they say, on this island, you'll have monitors. If you step out of line, you're done for. Forget that elixir of life. But the announcer, or whatever you want to call him, says, oh, before we go to that island, we're actually gonna have to get rid of a few of you guys. And that's when we see this guy choking someone out. He's like, you guys are dumb. He means we gotta kill each other. And they all start attacking each other, but they can't untie their wrists. And one of the men is saying, how are we gonna see their true skill if they can't even fight to their true potential? But that's when the head of the Shogun, I'm assuming that's what he is, says, oh yeah, show me the ones with the red seal. We get shown the Bakugo. And then we see a Kunoichi. I don't have a nickname for her, but she's a good ninja. But then we have the sword dragon. And then we have a giant. And he's just chilling there sitting. He doesn't care about anything going on around him. But then they say the most famous villain here today is Gabimaru the Hollow. You gotta watch him fight. And he's standing there doing nothing. And that's when we see that Asaimon member from before. And he's talking to Saigari and he's saying, I'm not gonna lie, you're not built for this. What you're seeing right now isn't even as bad as it's gonna be on the island. Because they're in front of the Shogun. They're in front of all these people. They're not letting loose for real. And look, their hands are tied. Saigari's like, yeah, shut up, you're a fraud. But we see Saigari's backstory, and while all the kids are eating food, she's interested in dead bodies. Little weirdo. But she said the truth is reflected in the blade, and this has been my destiny since day one, regardless of me being a woman or not. And 3 goons bum rush her, but get decapitated in a heartbeat, and she starts hesitating because of the burden she's taking on. That's when Gabimaru says, why kill? They say, how'd you pass the front lines? How are you up here near the samurai? You need to back up. But that's when the main announcer says, hey, if you kill this guy right now, I'll let you go to that island. No questions asked. So he walks up with a rock and he throws it at Gabimaru, but Gabimaru dodges it. And Gabimaru's saying, I really don't want to do this. I'm gonna be honest, I don't want to kill you. But the goon isn't giving up, so he says, alright, I guess I'm just adding a new burden to my list. It's gonna take a toll on me, believe me, but I'm still gonna cook y'all real quick. So Gabimaru tears the throat off of the first one, and he hits the next one with a spin kick to the ground, crushing, I don't even know the anatomy of his neck. This man is cooked. He then runs up and hits another Quayo splitter, and then forgot to press order on his DoorDash, so he takes a bite out of this guy's neck, and he just starts cooking through each and every single one. They end up going out to the beach to fight. The head of the Shogun drops his fan because he doesn't know what to do, and Gabimaru's just sitting there with blood dripping from his hands, and cue the phrase I say every video. Gabimaru's cheek spanning out there in the water, and when Saigari sees her blade, she's like, yo, this man hasn't been dropping his burdens. He kills with no fear. He just accepts it and continues pushing on. I should take advice from this guy. And that's when they start their expedition to paradise. But we see the elixir of life firsthand in Iwagakure when the chief survives attacks from spears, swords, everything being shot at him. And Gabimaru says, yeah, he had some medicine and it basically turned him into this. But when Gabimaru snaps out of his binds and Saigari tells him, you're gonna have to keep those on. When he tries to put them back on, he gets hit in the head and sent flying. We see another criminal in his Asaimon, and the criminal doesn't have his hands bound. But Gabimaru survives the attack. He just said it dislocated his neck. But the big criminal says, oh, I'm just here to weed everybody out and find the elixir myself. But that's when Saigari says, all right, you can find him, Gabimaru, but you gotta keep your hands bound. So as he's tying his hands back together, he's being attacked and he's breaking every single weapon that hits him. And after he finally ties them back together, he knees the weapon, sending the other criminal into the sky. And when all the weapons fall down, he dodges one to kick one into his gut. But we find out that the armor is sewn to his skin. And he's like,
Oh, you better get serious, buddy.
he got off screen in a heartbeat. But that's when this random Asaimon who thinks he's the stuff is talking to Saigari, and he's saying, yeah, did I forget to mention you're a lower rank than me? But let me tell you this real quick, rules don't matter on this island because nobody is going to follow them. And you see that guy behind you? He's a walking liability. Want me to deal with him? Gabimaru touches his blade. He's like, yo, beat it, buddy. Yeah, right. But then he says in an hour something will change. And that's when we see that most of the criminals are dead, and even one of the Asaimon, the dude we thought was a Gojo, the Benimaru of this universe, he got packed out by the giant and eaten. And that's when the same Asaimon member says there'll only be like one criminal left here tomorrow. We already sent letters out. Iwagakure is going to be here soon, but I'll see y'all. And that's when Gabimaru instantly goes in for an attack on Saigari. Oh, my fault. I forgot to tell you, I'm gonna be hollow again. But the true reason that the chief killed Gabimaru's parents is because after having Gabimaru, they were like, oh yeah, we're gonna leave. So after they finished with the type soul volt standing test, because they're doing nothing but parrying each other, what an absolute waste of time just running up each other's posture bars. But Gabimaru tells her, I'm sorry, but the reason I have to get rid of you is because if Iwagakure pulls up to this island, it's gonna go up in flames. So I gotta find that elixir, get back to my wife, and you're just gonna slow me down. But she's saying I need to cut him down right now, but she can't because she's holding back. And Gabimaru's doing the same thing. He's thinking about his wife, how it changed him as a ninja. Because on missions he could kill if someone talked trash about his wife, but then if someone said they had a wife, he couldn't kill. But after he goes in for his next attack with the hand, he stops again. But after they clash swords again, he hears the words of his chief and he flips his switch like Killua and posture breaks her, knocking her back. But she blocks the next attack with her sheath, and he's like, yo, just put the sheath up. You can't beat me, but killing you will be hard, so just get it over with. And then she says, oh, if it's gonna be hard, do it already. She's on the ground. She got off screen. He's holding the blade over her, and he feels the grip of his chief trying to drive that blade through her, but his wife breaks off that aura. But that's when she slowly starts sliding the sword back in its sheath, and she's saying, normally I would execute a prisoner if they did this to me. Yeah, right, buddy. You weren't just getting your butt beat and you saw your life flash before your eyes. You would have joined Aizen Dono, whatever his name was, that bootleg fake fraud. But after this, they've come to terms, and she knows Gabimaru won't kill her, and Gabimaru knows she won't kill him. But that's when when we see the sword dragon and his Asaimon member, and they see man-made statues. But some weird bug lands on the sword dragon's hand and flies away. But that's when he looks at it and it has the face of a blobfish. He instantly cut off his hand because he knew nothing good could come out of that, and his hand instantly turns into wood. And that's when an insane amount of those bugs comes crawling out of the forest and those butterflies flying in the sky, and they see some sort of giant monster. And on Gabimaru's side, it's the same way for them. But before the sword dragon lost his hand, we found out more about his backstory. He was really just a chill dude, a strong guy with a sword. He got hired to work for a lord, be in the lord's house, but when the lord said, I know you have dragon in your name, but you can't really kill a dragon, can you? He cut down his mansion that had a dragon crest on it and got arrested. That is the craziest way to get put on death row. But after Luffy mixed with Jinbei slams his fist down to the ground, Gabimaru's about to show him the ninja way. Gabimaru jumps up and kicks it to the face, but it grabs him by the leg and slams him straight into the ground. He recovers though, and he tells Saigari, yo, didn't I tell you to stay back? He remembers when his chief told him, don't engage with anything you're not familiar with, and that's when he looks back at Saigari and sees her playing with butterflies in the sky. But he gets grabbed by Juffy, and Juffy takes him into the sky, slamming him through trees before slamming him to the ground. And Gabimaru tells Saigari, yeah, we gotta run. But that's when they look up and they notice that they're surrounded by all these different types of monsters. But that's when Gabimaru says, no time for thinking, it's time to just use Ascetic Blaze and kill each and every single one of these monsters. So after he takes off and jumps into the sky, he looks at the red monster and he stabs it straight through its throat. And since that wasn't enough, he hit it with Ascetic Blaze and burned it to a crisp. So after he dodges the next one's attack and runs up his body, he impales it with his fingers and starts heating it up like Bell did to the Minotaur in season 1. And he makes the monster play whack-a-mole and he bonks himself in the head and explodes. And after slicing this one, he goes on a rampage, killing all of the monsters. But Saigari's just watching him saying, is this even real? Like, am I dreaming right now? But she gets caught up by centipedes and a monster of its own walks up to her. And Gabimaru's saying, well, I could save her right now like Will Surford did to Scion in season 1. But he's like, nah, that's a waste of time. And he ends up saving her without even realizing he saved her. But some random Asaimon member pulls up to save both of them and finishes off the monster. But that's when the Kunoichi from before, her name is Yuzuriha, and she's saying, we can work together. Gabimaru pins her to the ground saying, seduction doesn't work on me, try another approach. She says 5 is better than 2, isn't it? That'd be dumb for y'all not to join us. Saigari gives Gabimaru the clear. He pins her to the ground again. She trying to be all touchy-feely. She doesn't know he got a wife at home. But then for the final time, she starts trying to mess with his mind. He's like, oh, I could betray you right now. I could do this. I could do that. But then she explains, hey, the butterflies, watch out for those. The centipedes, they can't do anything. They'll just eat you if you're dead. And there's some other bugs, but they'll only get mad at you if you get near them. The monsters are monsters. That's all we know right now. But Gabimaru's like, all right, we can pair up. Another hug pinned to the ground. I still got a wife. But that's when we see Bakugo and an Asaimon. Bakugo, also known as Chobe, that's his real name. His brother became an Asaimon so he could free him from prison. His brother's name is Toma. And in their past, they used to serve a lord, but that lord got betrayed, so they were poor. But Bakugo's like Mahoraga. He had the ability to adapt to any situation he was thrown in until he got arrested. He couldn't adapt to that jail, but he ended up finding a way because Toma was an Asaimon and freed him. But they find out that the monsters can speak, so they're like, hold on, are they gods? This is not heaven. We are in hell. But Bakugo goes on a rampage and he's tearing through each and every single monster, and that's when he says to Toma, if we find the elixir of life, we'll drink it. We're gonna kill every single criminal and monster in the process, so only me and you can have it. But we see the main team party scheming up. Gabimaru saying, oh, we went on an expedition of the island, and yeah, most of the plants are humans. No, I'm not feeding y'all humans, calm down. And they also find out that the monsters on the island may not have organs, but they do feel like humans, like it's some sort of animals fused with a human. They're saying that they're deformed gods. But later on, we see one of the Asaimon monitors talking to Saigari, and he's saying, you need to go home. I mean, you're the heir to the Yamada Asaimon clan. If you die on this island, there's no reason for that. And plus, you're a woman. This guy needs to tap into his women's suffrage books. He needs to become a performative male, because me personally, I would never say that. Go women. But after this, we see an Asaimon monitor and a criminal trying to escape the island. The Asaimon monitor saying, oh, don't worry, we don't need a partner. I'll just tell the shogunate you're not a criminal for real. But they notice a large ship, and that ship is not sailing. It's all the ships that tried to escape the island. And they're seeing some weird octopus monster that's attacking them. And we find out about the criminal's backstory. The criminal's name is Nuragai. And Nuragai was just chilling in a tree and saw some samurai and said, oh, I'll take y'all to the foot of the mountain. But when Nuragai took them to the foot of the mountain, they slaughtered all of Nuragai's tribe, because Nuragai comes from a tribe of people who didn't want to bow to the shogunate, and Nuragai got thrown in jail. And while they're on the ship, they also see the Asaimon monitor that told Gabimaru, basically, you're going to die. Well, guess what happened to him? He's dead. He got touched by flowers because he was trying to escape, and he gets split in half. And while Nuragai's Asaimon monitor is cutting through the octopus, he's saying, I need to hear your Nico Robin moment. You gotta tell me that you want to live. And Nuragai says, I want to live. So Nuragai gets a weapon, and they safely make it to shore. And oh yeah, Nuragai is a girl on some Dororo type timing. But later at night, they gotta keep watch on Gabimaru to make sure he's not sneaking away. You don't have to worry, bro. His sights are set on getting home to his wife. He is not going to sneak away. And Gabimaru gives Saigari a motivational speech. And the next day, when she sees that Asaimon monitor that was telling her to leave, she says, oh, basically, when I was a kid and I used to train, my own father would say, she needs to live a woman's life. But if I decide to live that woman's life, the outsiders are gonna hate me. But if I want to be in the Yamada Asaimon clan, my own family is going to hate me. But guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna stay a samurai. And he tries to slime her out. He grabs his weapon, but she grabs it and she's like, don't forget, you're the same person who told me I gotta procure weapons. But that's when the giant we saw from before is standing behind one of the monitors, and he takes at least a quarter of his torso away. But after the other Asaimon monitor tells her to run, she's about to get attacked, but Gabimaru comes in clutch with a kick to the face on Rokuroda. After he gets knocked through 3 trees and he survives it, Gabimaru's like, oh nah, I might have to actually kill this dude. I don't want to add that burn to my list, but it's all I can do. So he picks up an entire tree and he throws that tree at Gabimaru, but Gabimaru dodges it. Gabimaru then tries to parry his perilous attack, but he realizes he isn't built for this, and he's just dodging perilous attack after perilous attack. He then kicks up some rocks and sends them at Rokuroda, but they do no damage to Rokuroda even though they split through trees. He then hardens a towel strong as steel, but it does no damage to Rokuroda yet again. This is like when your friend used to take a bandana, dip it in water, and pop you like that. Rokuroda would have eaten that. He could have done it with a steel beam and he still wouldn't have felt a thing, but you and me, we all felt a lot of pain from this move at pool party. And Sagari's still trying to help this monitor, and he's saying, nah bro, just take my sword and lock in. This same monster be a Zendono. So good luck, buddy. But Rokuroda gets his pinky cut out of nowhere, and we see that Sagari took his finger. Gabimaru says, oh yeah, just make him kneel down and you'll behead him. And he parries his attack, no issue. And after she tries to cut his back leg, it does no damage. She tries to use dead calm like you, but Rokuroda throws some rocks of his own, and Gabimaru's leg locks up. She goes for another chop on his arm, but she does no damage again. And that's when out of nowhere, Rokuroda's stomach starts growling and he starts crying. Gabimaru gets bum rushed and slammed into the ground. But he gets back up. He's like, bro, if I could survive this, I was tripping this whole time. Damage out of nowhere. He's back on the ground. And he's about to get finished, but this is when Sagari says, oh, I can't be scared. She remembers what the monitor told her. Be in the middle. Accept everything. And after the waves finally come to a close, she knocks his hand out of the way. And Rokuroda's still attacking, but she's just deflecting each and every single attack, redirecting them. And the monitor's saying, we are ranked based on how they think we'll take over the Yamada Asaimon clan, and since she's a woman, she's obviously at the lowest. But when it comes to her sword skill, oh, she's the best. And after Rokuroda trips, she goes for the decapitation, but he jumps out of the way. And that's when Gabimaru says, all right, do to him what you couldn't do to me. Execute him. So Gabimaru throws more rocks, but they're on fire this time, and he's just using aesthetic blaze to throw things in his surrounding to set the forest on fire. He even sets a tree on fire and waves it in the sky. But after he reaches his limit and the entire forest is on fire, they're poisoning him with carbon monoxide. And after his head comes to the ground, Sagari readies her blade. But Rokuroda sees this and tries to attack, but Gabimaru knocks his arm down and pins him to the ground. And while Sagari's sitting there trying to reach that dead calm flow state again, we see a flashback of Rokuroda's past. He's saying, why won't anybody play with me? Why am I so hungry? And we see that he ate his parents. He was a criminal from day one, but she ends up cutting his head off smooth. As we see Rokuroda crying after he's already been decapitated, and he passes on peacefully. But that's when those monsters we saw from before start coming to the area, so they gotta go. And that Asaimon monitor from before, he ends up going up in the flames. But to be fair, I don't think he would have lived anyway. And Gabimaru and his crew stumble across a village. But that's when we see Bakugo and his brother yet again, and Bakugo says he notices something, and he goes to an area, and that's when we get introduced to the Tenshen. But Gabimaru notices somebody watching them, so he runs after her and grabs her hoodie and notices that it's a kid. But Stump Smash from Skylanders tries to attack, and he dodges. But after Gabimaru continues chasing her, he kicks Stump Smash in their direction and says, y'all got that, I'm gone. But Yuzuriha takes the glasses off the Asaimon monitor, and she starts using her jutsu, but she off-screens him. After playing with Kaizen 2 movement, if you know, you know, Gabimaru catches up, but she completely flips him. And she eventually comes to a stop when Sagari tells her to, but she turns around with the golden fist, and Gabimaru catches the blow and gets knocked back. It hit him in his spirit, but he plants his foot remembering his wife, and that's when he's like, yo, if you don't stop, I might have to go to jail. But he just wraps her up, and all's well that ends well. But Stump Smash from before is saying, just return the girl, and I'll tell you everything about the elixir of life. Stump Smash says he has food, they're like, we're good. He says he has a bath, they're on the way to his house. And after Stump Smash sits them down, he explains the elixir of life to him. He's like, oh, Tan, that's what you guys are looking for? It's in the center. Where you guys started in the forest, that was the third outermost ring. Right now, you guys are in the second innermost ring, but the first innermost ring is where you'll find that Tan. Gabimaru's like, you guys are lying. Elixir of life might not even be here. But he says, oh, when you see the Tenshen, you'll know. And we see the Tenshen now is fighting with Bakugo and his brother, and it's regenerating from a completely split body, and it throws both of them into a pit. And Stump Smash is saying, once you're thrown in that pit, they don't just kill you. You live on eternally, and you become the new source for Tan. So you guys are the elixir of life. The Tenshen won't let you guys leave here alive. But we find out the little girl's name is May, and I'm still gonna call the guy Stump Smash. But they try to make Hell's Paradise look like it's a paradise and not a hell. You see what I did there? Was that actually smart? Carry on. And Gabimaru's having flashbacks of his wife. He's remembering back then when he didn't like to bathe, and he bathed as frequently as the #1 predator in Apex Legends. But he gives May a motivational speech. He's like, those scars on your back, they're not ugly. Don't be ashamed of them. W Gabimaru. But you know, when you start off with a flashback, nothing good can come out of that. But he was basically a bum. He even beat up grown men. He was built like that. But that's when Shion. His name is Shion, by the way, not Shion or whatever I said. Took him under his wing. And that's when we see Nuragai and Tenzo walking on the beach saying, oh, when we get back to Edo, we could low-key get married or something like that. But they see Miss Frizzle standing in the water. And then Miss Frizzle turns into Mr. Frizzle because they trying to run away, but Mr. Frizzle's already at the chest and sends Tenzo flying back. Mr. Frizzle tries to attack Nuragai, but Nuragai's dodging each and every single attack. And that's when Tenzo finally recovers and chops up Mr. Frizzle and says, we gotta go, so they run. But as they're running through the forest, Mr. Frizzle caught up to them. But out of nowhere, a sword comes and hits Mr. Frizzle, decapitating him again. But Tenzo pops his ult, and that's when Shion says, wait. But he runs in and he's attacking faster than before, but Miss Frizzle's dodging even faster. And Miss Frizzle tells him, oh yeah, that's no good. One flick and 4 holes went through his body. But after this happens, we see a flashback of Tenzo and he's training with Shion. And Tenzo's saying he wants to quit, and Shion's telling him, yo, if you get one hit on me, fine, you can quit. But he says, I'ma quit regardless, and walks out. But that's when he gets met with Aizen. Aizen tells him, oh, he had a student named Tenshen just like you. Guess what? He quit, he became a thug, and he had to execute him himself. So don't quit. And we see that Tenzo went back to the dojo for his fight. Tenzo's saying, I'm dying. I don't have much time left. But he says, if I go down here, the monster will kill Shion, Nuragai, all 3 of us. And he plants his foot and he gets up and he hits Miss Frizzle with a combo, sending her flying back. He even hops on top to continue the beatdown. Pause. But he gets blasted with a double palm to the gut. He sees Shion running up and he can't even get out the words run, but Shion knows what he wanted to say. So he turns around and grabs Nuragai screaming. And that's when Tenzo continues to beat down Miss Frizzle. And we see what Tenzo envisioned the future to look like. But that's when we see Miss Frizzle just holding his head and Tenzo die. But we see a flashback and he finally got that hit off on Shion. But Senta, also known as Choji, is saying, I'm trying to find some more information, but I can't seem to keep my eyes peeled to read. And Sagari's saying, just get some rest. I'll keep watch over Gabimaru. But all of them end up going to sleep. And Gabimaru remembers when Choji told him, don't engage, we don't know anything for real. But Gabimaru said, I'm a ninja, I'ma do it myself. And that's when he continues to explore and he ends up finding the gate to the Tenshin's hideout. But that's when Miss Frizzle herself appears behind him and she's saying, can you just leave? I'm really not trying to fight right now. But Gabimaru says, why do you have to capture us? So you can make the elixir? So Miss Frizzle hops in and Gabimaru does the same but blocks her attack. And when she lands, she notices that Gabimaru broke her arm. But it's too late. Slow it down for me, thank you. Triple spin kick to the neck. It turns Miss Frizzle's neck into a bottle cap from all the spins that it's doing. Hitting her with a Dio Brando to the neck, making her start from square one. But she's regenerating from all of these attacks. Miss Frizzle tries to bum rush him, but he dodges each and every single attack, including the perilous one. Gabimaru hops in, pushes her arm out the way, kick to the face, another one. Hold on, you seen Stranger Things? Upside down. Y'all get it? Cause like Stranger Things upside down world. Let's continue to fight. He then uses ascetic blaze to burn her up and turn her literally into Armin's corpse. But after he turns his head, he gets a punch to the gut, sending him into the wall. A double up with a kick back into the wall, and Miss Frizzle thinks the job is done. And after Gabimaru survives that, the Tenshin is like, are you even human? And they start throwing hands on an equal level. I mean, Gabimaru is hand to hand with a self-proclaimed god. But after Miss Frizzle uses a perilous attack to knock him back, Gabimaru takes the arm with him. But after dashing back in and blow trading, he's thinking of a way to damage Miss Frizzle since ascetic blaze didn't work and obviously brute force isn't. And that's when he kicks him in the stomach, and Miss Frizzle coughs up blood and goes back to their woman form. But Miss Frizzle locks in and hits him with energy in his gut, and he can't even do anything about it. And Miss Frizzle's just sending off shot after shot, and Gabimaru's getting pieced up badly. But that's when he thinks about his wife and he plants his foot into the ground and brings himself back up. He starts blocking the attacks as he runs up, saying he's got to get back for his wife, and they punch each other at the same time. And this is the best definition of blow for blow. You can see both of them taking damage, and Gabimaru's just saying, I gotta attack quicker than she can regenerate or I won't win this battle. And they keep going blow for blow. Gabimaru's only moving faster, knocking off more pieces of the Tenshin. The Tenshin is saying, wait, this is impossible. Nah, it's possible. It's happening to you right now. And Gabimaru punches Miss Frizzle closer and closer to the ground before hitting the finishing blow. And he's like, I know you're not dead, but tell me where the elixir of life is. And that's when Miss Frizzle smiles. Miss Frizzle didn't even play her trump card yet. She transforms into a Hollow Knight Silk Song boss and zaps the mess out of Gabimaru, no diffing him. But Gabimaru's still alive. He's taking this. And after Gabimaru dodges the attack and tries to attack, he gets blocked again and zapped again. And he's back on the ground. And then he starts getting pummeled, and we just see him flying throughout the sky. No pupils in his eyes. But we see a flashback of Gabimaru and his wife, and he's telling her, I might not make it back. And that's when we also see a flashback of the chief from Iwagakure, and he's like, when you're going to die, I've already trained you to release as much power as you can regardless of your will. And we see that he does this to Miss Frizzle, and he frees himself from her grasp. And that's when we see Mei, and she protects Gabimaru with a shield, and they roll down the mountain. But later on, we see all 7 of the Tenshin. Miss Frizzle got turned into a monster from fighting Gabimaru alone because he was just that strong, and they're making fun of Miss Frizzle. But we can already tell that Jinchi right here is the leader. But Stump Smash is explaining to Sagari and her crew while they're searching for Gabimaru. If you defy the Tenshin, Tenshen, you're gonna end up like the people of this village. When we all die, we turn into trees. And the Tenshen were created from one hermit that split himself into 7 personalities. But we see that Bakugo and his brother made it out of that pit, and we finally see that Gabimaru survived. But when Gabimaru gets up and turns around, he sees the sword dragon, and he's saying, "Are you ready to die?" But as Gabimaru is being confronted, both him and the sword dragon, and apparently it's the blade dragon, but I've been calling him the sword dragon, so I'm gonna keep calling him the sword dragon, and he kind of reminds me of Dragon from Fire Force, but let's keep pushing forward. They're analyzing each other, and they're noticing if we attack each other, we're both going to die. So Gabimaru bows his head, and the dragon puts the blade to his head to make sure he's not pump faking. And he's like, "Dang, you're kind of lame." But Gabimaru explains everything that happened, and they're like, "Oh shoot, we got to see the Tenshen for ourselves." So they decide to work together. But that's when he turns around to see Mei, and Mei grew up. But Gabimaru asks what the move she used before was, and she explains to him that it was Tao. And she starts rambling, but she comes to saying it's weak and strong. And Stump Smash says that the Tenshen controls Tao, and it's the only way to beat the Tenshen. Shion has his own form of Tao that he's explaining the same time Stump Smash is explaining his, but it's yin and yang, and apparently they say yin and yang. And that got me thinking, have I been pronouncing it wrong this whole time? Y'all remember that show Yin Yang Yo? Or I guess Yin Yang Yo? That joke was so gas. But they have no time to talk about Tao because they got ambushed by monsters, and Gabimaru notices there's a monster in the back that's different from the rest. Bakugo and his brother also get ambushed by the same monster, and he's saying that he's a Doshi. The Toshi that you guys are seeing, yeah, they're trash. They're not even allowed in Horai like us. But we serve as the Tenshin's right-hand man. But the Doshi asks, "Can you just go back into the hole? I don't want to fight you guys." And Bakugo tries to fight him. And after tearing off his arm, the Doshi's like, "This guy's a formidable foe, but he doesn't know how to use Tao, so let me take him off the mat." And he leaves Bakugo in a pool of his own blood. But Bakugo was playing dead because he tears the face off the Doshi, and his throat ended up regenerating. He gets hit with a few Tao attacks and a bum rush and gets both his arms broken, but they regenerate too. After he gets blasted with Tao, he ends up hitting him in his weak spot for a critical hit, and his Tao continues to grow. The Doshi shoots energy at him, but he dodges it, and he can finally see Tao. He notices how he gathered that Tao, and he does the same and finishes the Doshi. But as Gabimaru and the sword dragon are cutting through each and every single one of the monsters, Mei's telling the sword dragon, "Yo, you gotta go stronger. No weaker, no stronger. Actually, yo, you suck." But the Doshi notices Mei, so he hops over Smooth with his coat and captures her and bows and says, "We need you to return to the Horai." They find out that she's a Tenshin as well, but once Mei turns around crying at Gabimaru, Gabimaru's already there to protect her. So after the Doshi summons his partner to the field, the sword dragon's like, "Oh, let me get this one. He took my arm. He knifed the centipedes back. He's looking tough." But then he gets hit with Tao and starts getting pieced up. Gabimaru's blocking his centipedes till he punches the sword dragon in the face. And that's when the Doshi stops to say, "Hey, you guys are gonna become Tao anyway, so let me just tell you how Tao works." Smart move, I guess. Give them the secret to basically unlocking a nin level ability mid-fight so they can beat you since they're about to die. But he says there's 5 stages, and on the 5th stage, you gotta circulate that yin and yang with your partner. You know what I mean? But when the Doshi starts saying that Mei only had yin, so they had to use her for yang, and the leader of the Tenshin said, "You can either die or be used as a training partner," we see Gabimaru's getting mad. But he looks over at Gabimaru, and Gabimaru is changing the energy in the air. Even the Doshi can feel it. So the Doshi pop their jutsu, and they transform like Miss Frizzle. But the sword dragon tries to chop one of the Doshi, but the butterflies scatter, and he gets knocked out by the gas. Gabimaru tries to kick the other one, but does no damage. And before they can get hit with the Tao, he sets up a firewall, and the Doshi have to stop attacking so they don't accidentally hit Mei. But that's when the Asaimon monitor, who loves to dissect things, oh weirdo, says that Mei says just to relax. And that's when Mei walks up to Gabimaru, and she's like Wing from Hunter x Hunter, because she starts flowing the Tao into Gabimaru so he can feel it. And after he remembers what Sagiri told him about weakness and strength, he feels the Tao. "Man, I'm chilling. This junk is light," and he walks through the flame. He can see the Tao, so he dodges the first attack no issue. And he's dodging the barrage of energy, getting closer to the Doshi. And Tao's even helping him read the direction of the attack. So after blocking his attack with one hand, he completely explodes his arm. He jumps off of the centipedes to get closer, and he kicks the Doshi's main body and doubles up on the second butterfly. And after they try one more all-out attack, Gabimaru jumps off the sword dragon to finish the butterfly, and the sword dragon splits the other one in half. And we see that Sagiri and her crew made it to the Tenshin's hideout, but Stump Smash gets his head knocked off, and Yuzuriha tries to run, but she gets grabbed. But he also tells them, "Oh yeah, you know, the elixir of life, that junk isn't real. It only works for us. I mean, and it's called sound, by the way, but it just makes us live longer. You guys, it's gonna turn you into a tree. I don't know if you want to be a tree, but if you want to be a tree, by all means, take a sip." But Yuzuriha uses substitution to cut his head off, and she's like, "Yo, let's run," but Sagiri's frozen. But after he regenerates, he's like, "You could be good for Boju Jutsu," and Boju Jutsu is the 5th stage of Tao. If you know, you know. If you remember, you remember. But Sagiri gets sent flying back with Tao, but Senta, aka Choji, cuts him up, and he's like, "Fat boy, move out the way." Yuzuriha uses more Tao with her ninjutsu, and the snake poison disintegrates this man in a heartbeat, but he eats that. He dodges each and every single attack they throw at him, knocks Senta back into a wall, and he grabs Yuzuriha by the leg. But we see Sagiri asking Stump Smash what is his weakness, and that's when Sagiri attacks, but she misses each swing. But she gets up close and cuts him in his center, but it does nothing to him. But all 3 of them decide to attack together, and the Tenshin goes invisible, but gets restricted wounded right before he can get Saiguri. Saiguri tries to attack but gets knocked back, and the Kyoshi human playthings get cooked by Senta. He's low-key cold, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't expect him to move like this. But the Tenshen bites his arm off to hit them with another Tao attack, and Saiguri can't cut him. But Yuzuriha and Senta are putting that work in, and when he's on the ground, Saiguri can't cut him in time and he flies into the sky. But after the Tenshen becomes a woman, Senta gets knocked out. Saiguri is running out of stamina because using this breathing form is no easy task. But Yuzuriha grabs her with her jutsu and tanks every attack before slamming her to the ground. She recovers, but Senta stabs her through the gut, hits her with the radix, and Saiguri runs up for the finishing cut and cuts her right in the weak spot using Tao. But we see Gabimaru in his crew, and we find out that he used too much Tao, so when he passes out, he hits his head. But that's when we go back to Saiguri's group, and Yuzuriha notices that there's more flowers in the area than before. A flower tries to pierce her, but Senta takes the attack, and we end up seeing that he was in love with Yuzuriha. She gave him his passion back for drawing, because while he was an executioner, he only had to focus on killing. He couldn't do any drawing. And we see that he drew a picture of her, and when we go back to real time, we see that Senta became a flower, and the Tenshen from before became Nightmare Grim from Hollow Knight. But when they're about to be attacked and they can't do anything about it, Xion pulls up and he slices through the Tenshen. Nightmare Grim tries to attack again, but Xion cuts through each and every single flower. We see Xion dodging the attacks, but when he goes in for the attack, he gets blocked. He has to cut the flowers to retreat, and the Tenshen starts sending out lasers. But through the smoke, he throws his sword, jumps up to grab it, and kicks the Tenshen flying back. But since he got cut, roses sprout out of him. He cuts them off in a heartbeat though, and he just starts losing blood. We find out that Nuragai has the power to give Tao boost, because after she hugs Saiguri, she starts feeling power flow through her. But Nuragai and Saiguri finally step on the battlefield, and they're covered in slime. The reason they are is so the roses can't sprout from them. And Saiguri is cooking up through these flowers like they're nothing. She's changed. And Nuragai's doing the same thing. I have never seen her move like this before. Even Shion's like, dang, yo, my new pupil is low-key cooking. And Saiguri, I mean, I guess she's doing all right for a woman. Nah, he's praising her too. And Shion's having his rage scene. He's saying, I can't turn back now. This is all for Tenza. And as he's running in, he's about to get attacked, but Saiguri pins the hand to the ground and he jumps on top of the Tenshen. Saiguri tells him to attack at the center, but he doesn't know where to attack. But he's putting all his Tao into one strike. But that's when Senta tells him where the flower sprouts. That's his weak spot, because it's like a plant. And he cuts it open, and we see all the faces of the Tenshen. And the Tenshen's telling him, thank you. I've been waiting for this for 1,000 years. And all the flowers begin to sprout because they beat the Tenshen. But after the fight, we see that Senta's dying. And Yuzuriha doesn't have enough medicine to stop the bleeding. So she tells him, think about something that brings you peace. He thinks about his family, and he thinks about Yuzuriha, and we lose Senta. But when they're investigating the Tenshin's domain, Yuzuriha says, yo, what if the elixir of life doesn't even exist? And Gabimaru's chief was just using some cheap party trick like a clown. And on Gabimaru's side of things, we see that he lost his memory. He doesn't know where he is. There's even allegations being thrown from Yuzuriha that his wife was made up. And when Mei looks at him, she sees that a part of his head is missing. The awakening of Tao can do this to you. It can result in death or in losing your consciousness. But in Gabimaru's flashback, his wife touches his hand, but she vanishes. And we just see him sitting there. And that's the end of Hell's Paradise Season 1. Oh, and oh yeah, in the end credit scene, 2 new Assignment monitors are coming to the island, but I guess we'll see what happens with that next month when Season 2 drops, won't we? I'm hyped for Season 2, and all I gotta say is I'll see y'all when Season 2 drops. Have a great rest of your day. Don't forget to subscribe, join my Discord server, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.